do is I'm just going to go over kind of floodplain management 101 with some terms, kind of what it is, very brief. My typical daily duties prior to October 4th of 2015, then kind of what brought on the October 4th, 2015 event. I'm not sure how much other groups have gone through it, so I'm just going to do a few quick slides. And then just the impacts that we've had, post-flood activities, which have just significantly changed my everyday job duties, and then just some of the recovery stuff that we've been going through as a county. So just some terms to define: special flood hazard area, floodway, flood fringe, and substantial damage. Okay, this is a lot of terms for the special flood hazard area. Is really what people think of as the 100-year floodplain. Anywhere that's shaded, if you look on the GIS map or on the firm panel, if it's shaded, people used to call it the 100-year floodplain. We're trying to get away from that term because people think it'll only happen once every 100 years, which means, hey, October 5th is not going to happen again. No, there's a 1% chance that it will happen in any given year. That's what the actual 100-year floodplain means, so we're trying to change that. Oh, the firm is, thank you, that is the FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency. That is the flood insurance rate map. That's what's used to determine your flood insurance rate and shows whether you're actually in the special flood hazard area. The shaded areas here are the special flood hazard area. The floodway is the red portion in the middle, which is really just thought of to where the stream actually is going to flow. And then the fringe is that area on the outside. And those two come together to make up the special flood hazard area. And one of the ways that my husband has explained it back to me is that he thinks of the floodway as like the interstate where you drive. So that's always open to traffic, always open to water. But then the area on the shoulders is the fringe where if it gets too much traffic, people start going out. So that's another way to look at it that I think has worked pretty well for people to understand. And so this is actually just a cross-section of that same picture we just saw where the floodway is in the red. The fringe is that outside point. And then if you notice, the house is kind of where they filled to elevate it up to make it more, to make it compliant and safer. This is the FEMA firm panel. The any of the shaded areas, the dark shading and the hatching is the special flood hazard area. The light shading is the 500 year or 0.2, which is outside the special flood hazard area. So I do not regulate it as a floodplain manager. It's more of an FYI. I only regulate what's in the special flood hazard area, being the 1% or 100-year floodplain in the floodway. And then the hatched area, this is actually along the Broad River. That's the Broad River floodway itself. And then this we're going to talk about a little bit later, but substantial damage. If you own a structure that's located in the special flood hazard area and it has 50% damage, which means that if your structure is worth $100,000 and the damage to it was $50,001, then it's considered substantially damaged and it has to be brought up to current flood code. Richland County's damage and improvement is cumulative. So if your structure is worth $100,000, 5 years ago you put on a $20,000 addition, then you just had $31,000 worth of flood damage due to October event. You are now substantially damaged / substantially improved. So you have to bring your structure up to current flood code. If you had $40,000 worth of damage because of the flood and you're not substantially damaged, so you fix yourself up and a tree falls on your house and you need a new roof and a new HVAC unit because it took it out and it costs $11,000, you're now substantially damaged and have to bring your house up to current code. Current code meaning your finished floor elevation, your HVAC, all your electrical, all your ductwork has to be 2 feet above the established base flood elevation. We have some structures in the county that are 6 feet below. So if they are substantially damaged, they would have to raise their house 8 feet. But we'll go through a little bit more of that with the flood stuff later, but this is just to get you all the definitions. I'm just going to go through relatively quickly what some of my daily duties were before October 4th. My job is basically to reduce the impact for structures, existing and proposed within the limits of unincorporated Richland County. I only deal with unincorporated Richland County. I don't do City of Columbia. They have their own floodplain manager. City Forest Acres. We do cover Arcadia Lakes and Town of Eastover. I work with the building department. I work with the planning department. I work with the public works department. If you came in and you had a question about it, you would see me at the counter. I deal with citizens. I deal with builders. Anybody who comes in with a question about flood. Again, these are, provide support and guidance for flood insurance. I do the best I can. I'm not an insurance agent, but I do know some of the tricks of the trade. If your structure's in the floodplain, but you've got an astronomical bill, I tried to help you figure out ways to get more information to hopefully lower your bill. Or if you're out, I have been on the phone with mortgage companies and insurance brokers for hours trying to convince them that this house is out of the 100-year floodplain. So it's a lot of outreach as well, which is, I think, the next one. I do inspections for the building department and the planning department, and then coordinate with other jurisdictions for anything that we may need to coordinate on. Another big part of my job is the commuting rating system. That is a voluntary program through the National Flood Insurance Program that provides discounts on everybody's flood insurance. So for activities like our increased ordinance regulations, our outreach for citizens, there's a book, a binder, that lays out what we can do, and for as many more points we get, the bigger the discount to every citizen. Right now, Richland County is a Class 8, which means if you have flood insurance, you get an automatic 10% off of your bill if you're located in the special flood hazard area. If you have flood insurance and you're outside of it, you get an automatic 5%. So it's something that the county just does to try to provide some sort of discount for you. And then the last one kind of outlays public information mapping, drainage reduction, and warning and response. So I'm just going to go into a little bit about what happened in October and what led up to it, and then what we did after it. So I'm not sure if y'all have seen this one before, but you had the high and the low and the hurricane coming up, which would not let the water move, which would not let the rain move. It caused that fire hose effect, kind of going up to where the arrow is. So, and it's right there over South Carolina, as you see. There were studies done, of course. There'll be many, many more done in the future. I'm sure this is going to be plenty of people's master's and PhD work. But the most recent that we've seen for, if the hurricane hadn't been there, it was projected that the majority of the rain would have fallen on Raleigh, in the Raleigh, North Carolina area. So these are just some, I'm not sure how many of these pictures you've seen, but the darkest of the blue is the higher rain values. I'm not really expecting you to be able to see the numbers, but right smack in the middle is 21.5 in Richland County, middle of the state. Just a blow up of Richland County. It did have anywhere from, 19.2, 13, 12. I think one of the lowest is 9.3 inches. This is one of the larger hit areas from Richland County was Gills Creek watershed. It includes, and this is where our coordination with other jurisdictions is important, because that covers Town of Forest Acres, City of Columbia, Town of Arcadia Lakes, Richland County, and Fort Jackson. So there's 5 different municipality governmental systems in there. And this is from Gills Creek itself, one of the gauges on Gills Creek that just stopped working once it hit 17.09. It did peak up to 19.6. And then this is just the rainfall event over those hours along Gills Creek. As you can see, at about 3 o'clock in the morning on the 4th, it was at 5 inches. 6 hours later, they were at almost 15 and a half. That's overnight hours. That's people in bed asleep. Another area that we had some significant damage was Lower Richland from the elevated areas, then the downflow through. And a lot of that flooding also came off of Gills Creek. So the flooding that was down along the Congaree River didn't come from the Congaree. It came from Gills Creek. And then these are just some more of those rainfall totals. So you've got almost 4 up to 10 and a half in Hopkins. about 5 to 13 and a half, if you will, over some of these same time frames. Which, I mean, that's significant rainfall. We had some rain before, and so basically that's what happened. Sorry, South Carolina's closed. This was my backyard. This is what I woke up to in the morning. Needless to say, I did not live here. This is what other people woke up to. And here's my plug in that bottom corner, in that bottom picture. That's my husband with the City of Columbia. I just had to put his picture in there too. So he was working all night then. But so it was definitely a wide range of damage throughout. These are just some of the pictures that we had. This is Green Diamond. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that lawsuit that was going on. That is pre-flood. That's during. And again, the majority of that is from the Gills Creek watershed. It's just a closer up. That's the wastewater treatment plant for the City of Columbia. And then our infamous, if you watch TV, you saw this on TV. So that was pre, this is during, and this is what it looks like now. And Mike had earlier talked about damaged properties, you know, and dilapidated properties. This one has not had any open cases on it because we are pursuing some grant opportunities that I'll talk about in a little bit. But the site has been secured. There is fencing going around it. They have actually put up some kind of shields to kind of protect, you know, the neighboring businesses from having to look at the blight. This is another one of the properties that the swing set on that top picture is not their swing set. And I was informed that this was the structure where the family was rescued out of the top of that roof where the triangle is at the pitch. That's where the family was rescued out of that house. So in all of these houses, I mean, this house was built in the late 50s, early 60s. This is one that is about 6 feet below the base flood elevation. So, I mean, you know, water rate reached 9 feet in the house. So this is on the other side of Richland County. This is Stoop Creek. It's by Fernandina Road and 26, right there where Richland County and Lexington County meet. A portion of these apartment complexes are actually in Lexington County. So the property itself splits it. They were also in the floodway. And this is actually just a video that was done by a consultant.
Let the
So that's, kind of why we do what we do, to try and protect from things like that, even between floodplain management, the building department, planning and development services. It's to try to do things to prevent as much loss as we can. So let me see. I'll just go. Whoa. So since the flood, whenever we all came back to work, again, building inspections, kind of what we did. The building department went out and did 738 inspections countywide on residential and non-residential structures. They placard homes green, yellow, and red. Green being safe to go in, kind of start taking care of your business. Yellow being use caution. You can go in, collect some belongings if you need to start cleaning it out. And red being structural damage, you need to have somebody come in and investigate before you go back in and do anything else. So these are just some of the quick numbers. 17 were unsafe for habitation for residential structures. They had 3 unsafe for commercial or non-residential structures, and they were here that Monday after the flood, starting this process, starting to get their stuff together, starting to get things done. The one thing I did learn on October 5th is you are not a floodplain manager until disaster hits, and that is what I felt like. So I actually had to learn what my job duties were after a flood event. Come to find out that we had to evaluate every structure that had potential for damage that was located in the special flood hazard area after the disaster. We knew no damage had been reported from Lake Murray, so we took those out. That left almost 1,700 structures that had to be evaluated. Again, I'm a one-person department. So thank goodness that DNR came through and was able to get FEMA and their contractors in to come and help us do those assessments at no cost to Richland County. So they were able to get those assessments done in 4 weeks. They did them on the FEMA substantially damaged estimator, and they estimated 81 commercial and 107 residential homes were substantially damaged. Whenever we went back through and did QA/QC and evaluated based on building permits that were being submitted, we have currently 65 residential and 15 non-residential structures that are substantially damaged. The residential structures would have to be elevated, relocated, or removed, and something could potentially be rebuilt there. The non-residential structures could actually be flood-proofed. They have another option, but because they're non-residential. We did host meetings throughout the county, did some HOA meetings, and have gone through to get some other information from communities over what kind of impacts they had from the flood. And then where we are now, we selected Tetra Tech as a consultant to help us through the short-term recovery and our long-term recovery. The long-term recovery being working with the grant programs, which is what we're trying to do the acquisition projects. We have 6 pre-applications for acquisitions for the hazard mitigation grant program. We're looking to acquire the properties and remove the structures to mitigate any future losses. We got our pre-apps approved. We are in the process of developing our full applications. So that's one pot of money we're looking at. This is just the state funding for that. So 25% of that goes to housing or acquisitions. So we're looking to hopefully tap into that 25%, which is approximately $9 million. The total the state got for the HMGP, the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, is $36 million. So it gets split up by those percentages at this time. It can change if nobody puts in for a dam, then that 25% would get split to other groups. So we're hopeful that we're going to get good applications put together. And then another pot of money is the FMA, but it's a yearly program that actually a disaster doesn't have to occur. And so the county's putting applications in for this as well. The difference is that you have to have flood insurance to qualify under the FMA program. The county did have one successful application in the past, was the Zorbas on Decker. The county acquired that property a couple years ago and has since removed the structure. It was removed before the flood event, so that could have, saved some other potential dangers as well. We're trying to get our applications in the next week and a half, 2 weeks, because they're due on, they're due in early May. And then I think the community development block grant, Valeria may talk a little bit about, but that's just another source of federal funding that could be used to help with some of the recovery efforts. And then this is just our quick selection criteria for things for each of the 2 different grants. Acquisition, storm drainage management if there's issues. Y'all can read through those, but that's kind of what we're going through. If you have a federally backed mortgage, which most of them are, if it's not through some private separate company, if it's through a bank or typically any mortgage group company, Quicken Loans, any of those that you file through, those are federally backed mortgages. And if the structure is in the special flood hazard area, the bank is required to make you maintain flood insurance. If it's found that the bank did not, the bank can be fined $1,000 per case for not having you maintain the flood insurance. Outside of that, Richland County, we send over 9,000 brochures yearly to properties, not just structures that are located in the special flood hazard area. So if your house is, let's say you own 10 acres, and your house is in the front portion, and there's a big creek in the back, and there's 3 acres that's in the floodplain, but your house is out, we still send, it's a flood happens is what it's called. It's a little brochure, fold out, that we send to try and make sure people know that your property is in the special flood hazard area. You can go to Richland Maps, or you can, we offer a free service for realtors. You can tell your realtor to submit a flood zone verification request. They can email it in, it's free of charge. And so we can fill that out for them and email it back. And then there are a couple of the companies that do it, they have one for every listing. It's a lot of paperwork, but they have one for every listing. And there are some that didn't know about it until, October 10th.